In spite of yearning mind and longing sense, to a sad thought by grey experience formed, and a vision dimmed by care and sorrow and sleep, all this seemed only a bright, desirable dream, conceived in a longing distance by the heart of one who walks in the shadow of earth pain. I
So
continue.
we are continuing Book 2,
Okay.
the Book of the Traveler of the Worlds, Canto 3, The Glory and the Fall of Life. And what we are seeing here is this experience of Ashrapati, seeing this glory and fall of life. He's not able to enter,
Mhm,
uh, and his soul is still tied to an image of unquiet life.
mhm,
So even in spite of yearning mind and the longing sense, to a sad thought, my gray experience formed, and a vision dimmed by care and sorrow and sleep. All this seemed only a bright, desirable dream, conceived in a longing distance by the heart of one who walks in the shadow of earth pain. And this is what he's going through. And we see that there is a lot of earth pain. We're feeling it ourselves in 100 years later. Um, Savitri is giving us the foreknowledge of it years ago. Sri Aurobindo probably completed Savitri, or as much as he wanted to, around 1949.
Oh, okay.
So we're seeing now that his experiences in the pseudonym of Ashrapati were seemingly only a vision dimmed by care and sorrow and sleep. In this canto, the glory and the fall of life.
Mhm.
And now we have to see what else he's experiencing.
Okay. Although he once had felt the eternal's clasp, too near to suffering worlds his nature lived, and where he stood were entrances of night.
Yes, so he's still too near to this world of ignorance
Okay.
in which we live. And his nature is still living there. But
Mhm.
where he is standing, he sees these entrances of night. And that's a bit shocking
Mhm.
because the night is the symbol of the ignorance or avidya.
Mhm.
So let's see what's going on next.
Okay. Hardly too close, beset by world's care, can the dense
Beset.
beset, okay. Hardly too close, beset by world's care, can the dense mold in which we have been made return sheer joy to joy, pure light to light.
Uh, being with Ranganath twice a week,
Mhm,
we go into this aspect very deeply. We, in taking birth, we are in the ignorance. And the ignorance is only basically in the vital and the mental, lower mental worlds. And so we are formed in that. We are above the total ignorance because we have a psychic being that has grown. But this dense mold in which we have been made finds it impossible to return sheer joy to joy and pure light to light. Very sad, but very true.
Mhm.
Please continue.
Sure. For its tormented will to think and live, first to a mingled pain and pleasure woke, and still it keeps the habit of its birth, a dire duality in our way to be.
And of course, that's exactly what
What you
we're,
said, yeah. Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
This, we live in the duality. And the only way we're going to get out of it is to rise into the spiritual realms of consciousness. So Sri Aurobindo has much more to tell us.
Sure. In the crude beginnings of this mortal world, life was not, nor mind's play, nor heart's desire.
Well, it's the beginnings of this mortal world where life is not, nor the play of mind, nor the heart's desire. So it's a very crude beginning.
Mhm.
Man is just a little bit above the animal
Mhm.
because it's not ready for the true mind nor the true heart's desire. And now he's going to give us a description of what happened.
When earth was built in the unconscious void, and nothing was save a material scene.
And nothing was save a material scene.
Okay. And nothing was save a material scene, identified with sea and sky and stone. Her young gods yearned for the release of souls, asleep in objects, vague, inanimate.
So things are not really alive yet. They're inanimate.
Mhm.
They're in objects. Of course, there is a consciousness even in the stone
Mhm.
because the divine presence is in the stone. But there was nothing there except this material scene, which we identify with sea and sky and stone. And therefore, her young gods yearned, aspired for the release of souls that were asleep in objects, vague, inanimate. So I think these young gods are these aspiring beings who want souls to be released because they're asleep in objects and they're vague and they're inanimate. They don't have the power yet of life. Everything is just like clay.
Okay.
Carry on.
Yep. I mean, in the Hindu philosophy, they say, no, sometimes even a stone, when they put some red color on it, they'll treat it as God if everybody goes and starts worshipping it. So you find God in the stone too. Um, Somewhere I'm trying to make that link here that there is consciousness everywhere in every object on the earth. And maybe all of those things are trying to, maybe I'm comparing that with the young gods who want to transition themselves into the higher world.
I would agree with you.
Okay. I'll read ahead. Thank you, Narad sir. In that desolate grandeur, in that beauty bare, in the deaf stillness, mid the unheeded sounds, heavy was the uncommunicated load of Godhead in a world that had no needs, for none was there to feel or to receive.
So we can say it's just simply this total uh, silence,
Mhm,
this deaf stillness.
mhm.
There are sounds, perhaps, but they're unheeded. And it's a bare beauty. It's a grandeur, desolate grandeur. But still heavy was the uncommunicated load of Godhood in a world that had no needs. How can the world have any needs if there is none there to feel or to receive? And he's going to continue.
This solid mass which broke, sorry, this solid mass which brooked no throb of sense could not contain their vast creative urge, immersed no more in matter's harmony. The spirit lost its status quo repose.
Statuesque.
Statuette, okay.
Statuesque, like a statue.
Statue,
Statuesque repose.
statue,
Esque.
statues. Um,
So
this,
this solid mass that does not tolerate no any throb of sense, but it could not contain this vast creative urge of the divine to manifest life. So there is no longer any immersion in matter's harmony. Not at all. Why? Well, because everything is inanimate, still, not alive. And therefore the spirit lost its statuesque repose. What's going to happen next?
in the uncaring trance, it groped for sight, passioned for the movements of a conscious heart, famishing for speech and thought and joy and love in the dumb, insensitive wheeling day and night, hungered for the beat of yearning and response.
We only had one thing: groped, groped, groped. Yes.
Groped.
So it is groping for sight in this, what seems to be an uncaring trance.
Mhm.
And it passions for the movements of a conscious heart. It wants that. And it's famishing for speech and thought and joy and love in this dumb, insensitive, wheeling day and night, hungered for the beat of yearning and response. So interesting, this inconscience here that we're going to hear about. This is still has the absolute consciousness in it,
Mhm.
but it's not in movement outwardly into creation or
Wow.
creativeness, creativity. So what happens next?
The poised in conscience shaken with a touch, the intuitive silence trembling with a name, they cried to life to invade the senseless mold and in brute forms awake divinity.
Yes, so they are crying to life here in this plane of existence, to awake divinity, consciousness. They want life to invade this senseless mold, this clay, this inanimate
Mhm.
material.
Mhm.
And then the intuitive silence is trembling with a name, and the poised in conscience is shaking with a touch. So all of this is happening in the dumb, silent, insensitive wheeling day and night that is hungering for the beat of yearning and response. So they want life to invade this senseless mold. They want, even in brute forms, to awake divinity.
A voice was heard on the mute rolling globe. A murmur moaned in the unlistening void. I think that's
Yes, a voice was heard. Somehow that voice was heard, that divine presence on this silent rolling globe. And a murmur even moaned in the unlistening void. Now, what else is going to happen?
a being seemed to breathe where once was none, something pent up in dead, insentient depths, denied conscious existence, lost to joy, turned as if one asleep since dateless time.
So we see that there is a being in this glory and fall of life um, that seems to breathe where once there was nothing, there was no breath. Something pent up, something confined, something restrained in dead, insentient depths, insentient without feeling or sensation,
Mhm.
denied conscious existence, lost to joy, turned as if one asleep since dateless time. Fantastic. Where are we?
So Narad sir, does it mean that so when it's the line I'm trying to associate it with, I'm not too sure if this analogy is right, but something pent up in dead, insentient depths means is it um, about the yearning, that was happening with this um, with objects that did not have consciousness. So when a being seemed to breathe, means are they slowly trying to be conscious? But when that voice was heard, they are still lost in their deep sleep and not ready um, to sort of grasp it since they have been asleep since dateless time.
Well, we have to see that this matter,
Mhm.
this matter that that seems to us totally uh, nothing at all,
Mhm.
just a lump of clay.
Mhm.
But we realize also that clay can take a form.
Mhm.
When you give form to something, especially in waking life, there comes in the possibility of joy and of error. So we see that this something, this
Hmm.
something like this force that wants to awaken
Hmm.
is pent up in dead insentient depths. It's denied conscious existence, it's lost to joy, but it turns as if one asleep since stateless time, aware of its own buried reality, remembering its forgotten self and right. It yearned to know, to aspire, to enjoy, to live. So, what is this remembering its forgotten self? Well, all of us have had hundreds, if not thousands, of births already. And we yearn to know that forgotten self and our right because we want to know, we want to aspire, we want to enjoy, we want to live. And this is what's happening in this plane of the glory and fall of life. So we'll move on a little bit. We can't go very much further, but we'll start at the top of the page because the first line tells us almost everything.
Okay. Life heard the call and left her native light.
So light is going to come down in the involution because it hears the call of this seemingly inanimate matter, wanting to live, wanting to grow, wanting to love. And so it leaves the heights as coming through the involution, which is always pure. But the moment it reaches matter, then the ignorance comes about. So I think it's good if you read everything up until then,
Okay.
because we have quite a bit today.
Okay. I said, give me just 1 second. Last few lines of what you said. I want to pen it down. Okay. I'm going back to page 128, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. In spite of yearning mind and longing sense, to a sad thought by grey experience formed, and a vision dimmed by care and sorrow and sleep, all this seemed only a bright, desirable dream, conceived in a longing distance by the heart of one who walks in the shadow of earth pain. Although he once had felt the eternal's clasp, too near to suffering worlds his nature lived, and where he stood were entrances of night. Hardly too close beset by the world's care can the dense mold in which we have been made return sheer joy to joy, pure light to light. For its tormented will to think and live, first to a mingled plain, first to a mingled pain and pleasure woke, and still it keeps the habit of its birth. A dire duality is our way to be. In the crude beginnings of this mortal world, life was not, nor mind's play, nor heart's desire, where earth was built in the unconscious void, and
When Earth was built.
when earth was built in the unconscious void, and nothing was save a material scene.
Oh, and nothing
Nothing
was.
was, okay, and
Save,
nothing was.
save here means accept.
Oh, okay. and nothing was save a material scene, identified with sea and sky and stone. Her young gods yearned for the release of souls, asleep in objects, vague, inanimate. In that desolate grandeur, in that beauty bare, in the deaf stillness mid the unheeded sounds, heavy was the uncommunicated load of Godhead in a world that had no needs. For none was there to feel or to receive. This solid mass, which brooked no throb of sense, could not contain their vast creative urge. Immersed no more in matter's harmony, the spirit lost its status
Statuesque.
statue
Like a statue. Statue.
statue x
Esque.
esque
Like
s
ESK.
esk. Okay,
Statuesque.
statuesque. Okay, the spirit lost its statuesque repose in the uncaring trance. It groped for sight,
Groped.
groped, not grow, grow, not grow. Okay. In the uncaring trance, it groped for sight, passioned for the movements of a conscious heart, famishing for speech and thought and joy and love in the dumb, insensitive wheeling day and night, hungered for the beat of yearning and response. The poised in conscience shaken with a touch, the intuitive silence trembling with a name, they cried to life to invade the senseless mold and in brute forms awake divinity. A voice was heard on the mute rolling glow, a murmur moaned in the unlistening void. A being seemed to breathe where once was none, something pent up in dead, insentient depths, denied conscious existence, lost to joy, turned as if one asleep since dateless time, aware of its own buried reality, remembering its forgotten self and right. It yearned to know, to aspire, to enjoy, to live. Life heard the call and left her native light. I think.
Well, I have something to say to you. Your inflections have become better and better, and I really appreciate them. Um, the only problem we are having is a very simple problem. It's English speech, English language. And I note that you're taking down very consciously the proper pronunciation and all that will come. So I applaud you.
Narad sir, it is all because of you. I applaud you, Narad sir. Without you, you have made a striking difference in my life. I mean, I let Mother's grace and your blessings be with me. Uh,
Thank you.
yeah, it's helping me a lot in my professional world too. And somehow
Uh,
I'm able to connect. I think it's just that my concentration doesn't stay for long. So I'm struggling with that. When you're with me, I'm able to grasp, but when I'm by myself, I don't know. It's a different thing. So whenever you are there, these are the most precious times of my life. So thank
Thank you
you,
so
Narad, sir.
much. And I'm sure your English is improving.
I'm trying my best.
I
Thank
mean, it has to, obviously.
you. Yes.
Namaste.
Namaste.